The single drop of oil caught my eye, falling silently from somewhere above and landing with almost deliberate precision on my control panel. It shimmered under the dim crimson lights, a tiny red universe suspended on the cold metal. I watched it spread slowly, claiming the surface inch by inch. My fingers hovered just above, reluctant to disturb this small rebellion against the sterile order of the command deck. That drop of oil. It reminded me that beneath all this cold steel and circuitry, something organic still lingered in me. Fun, status report. Came the voice of Commander Valen, sharp and unyielding, cutting through my moment of quiet reflection. I wiped the oil away with the sleeve of my uniform, the dark fabric swallowing the evidence of my distraction. All weapon systems nominal. Shields at full capacity. Machine spirit stable. I recited the words automatic, a mantra drilled into me over years of service. My eyes flicked over the ancient runes and displays, translating their cryptic messages into something my mortal mind could grasp. The console hummed beneath my fingertips, warm and alive, like a heartbeat not my own. I serve inside the Warhound, a colossal battle machine from the 7th Armored Legion, a walking cathedral of iron and fire. For over a decade, it has been my home, my body, my god. I am Kiro's Fun, and this is my life. Outside, the blasted plains of Northumbria stretched beneath a blood-red sky, a world teetering on the edge of rebellion. Our mission was clear. Crush the insurgents, enforce the Emperor's will, and bring order to chaos. Once, these words filled me with righteous fire. Now they were mere facts, colorless and cold. Valen shifted behind me in his chair, the faint hiss of hydraulics accompanying his movement. He was more machine than man now, his withered body entwined with countless cables and neural links. Sometimes I wondered if he was still truly Valen, or just the will of the Warhound wearing the ghost of a man's memory. Enemy forces approaching from the northeast, reported Lieutenant Larrick, her voice flat, betraying none of the tension in the room. Infantry supported by armor. Primitive designs, low threat level. I felt the deck tremble beneath my boots, the Warhound's hunger stirring. It was eager, ready to unleash destruction. Not my hunger, but one I had carried so long it was almost mine. Reactor output rising. Came the engineer's call from below. The machine spirit was waking, and I moved over the controls with practiced ease. The volcano cannons spun up, capacitors charging with terrifying power. The Gatling blaster whirred, testing its motors. The massive power fist flexed, hydraulics hissing under pressure. We were gods preparing for war. The viewports showed nothing but darkness and the distant flash of artillery. Soon, my senses would be replaced by the Warhound's own, feeding directly into my mind through the neural link at the base of my skull. I would see as it saw, feel as it felt, become something more and yet less. Fun, bring primary weapons online. Plot firing solutions on enemy armor. Valen ordered. My fingers danced across the controls, ancient technology responding to my touch. The air thickened with the scent of incense and ozone as servitors muttered prayers to the machine spirit. I mouthed my own silent ones, litany after litany learned during my induction. Grant me your strength to direct your wrath. Grant me your sight to find your enemies. Grant me your wisdom to serve your purpose. The moment of joining neared. I felt the pressure building at the base of my skull, the neural interface warming, preparing to breach the barrier between flesh and machine. This was the moment I both craved and feared. To become one with the Warhound was to touch divinity, but also to lose myself. Commencing neural synchronization, Valen intoned. Imperator, we responded in unison. Pain lanced through my skull, white-hot and cleansing. I tasted copper-bitten lip. It didn't matter. Flesh no longer held sway. My consciousness expanded, racing through the Titan's vast systems. I stood 100 feet tall, skin of adamantium, blood replaced by coolant and plasma. Power surged through me, the reactor pulsing like a heart. Valen dominated our shared mind, his will the sharp edge of our destructive symphony. Larrick's precise thoughts blended in, and below, the chorus of lesser crew formed the background rhythm. We took the first step, and the world trembled beneath us. Something was wrong. A flicker of doubt, quick and sharp, stabbed at the edges of my mind. But before I could question it, Valen's voice thundered in my thoughts. Focus, Fun. Do not let distraction dishonor the machine's spirit. I swallowed the doubt, embracing the cold certainty of war. And yet, the warhound, my god in prison, waited, watching, listening. The warhound's massive footfalls echoed like thunder across the scarred fields of Northumbria, each step shaking the earth beneath us, flattening the remnants of shattered trees and twisted metal. From my towering vantage point inside the cockpit, the world looked small and fragile, like a child's toy waiting to be crushed. I tightened my grip on the controls, knuckles white beneath the gloves, the cold metal beneath my fingers humming with barely contained fury. Lieutenant Larrick's steady voice cut through the cacophony. Enemy armor attempting to flank, southeast quadrant. Multiple tracked vehicles. They're moving fast. I allowed a brief, grim smile. Not fast enough. Glancing to my left, I caught a glimpse of Commander Valen's gaunt form, obscured by wires and mechanical implants. His pale eyes were fixed ahead, a storm of calculation and cold resolve. He barely resembled the man he once was, more machine, more myth than flesh. But still, his presence anchored me. Or perhaps it chained me. The line blurred with every passing battle. Activate power fist energy field. I commanded, feeling the surge of power ripple through my arm. The massive mechanical hand crackled with blue arcs of electricity, an ancient weapon designed to rend steel and bone alike. The enemy tanks closed in, their engines churning up mud and debris, their crews desperate and determined. I swung the warhound's fist in a wide arc, the glowing energy field singing as it tore through the lead vehicle. The tank crumpled like a paper toy, twisted metal folding in on itself. The electric discharge leapt to nearby vehicles, their crews vaporized in an instant. The taste of their destruction was metallic and bitter on my tongue, carried through the neural link. I forced the emotion down, reminding myself, these were enemies of the Imperium, threats to order and stability. Sympathy was a luxury I could no longer afford. Enemy infantry concentration ahead, Larrick reported, her tone neutral as ever. Targeting with Gatling blaster. The weapon roared to life, a hurricane of spinning barrels unleashing thousands of rounds per minute. The air filled with the sharp smell of burning gunpowder and the coppery scent of blood. Tiny figures scattered beneath the hail of fire, screams lost in the storm of war. I forced my gaze away, focusing instead on the tactical displays, the streams of data pouring into my mind. The warhound moved with surprising grace for a machine of its size, pivoting to face threats with lethal precision. Damage report, I called. Minor armor breach on left greave, came the calm reply. No systems compromised. The ground beneath us was a cratered wasteland, the shattered ruins of villages and farms reduced to rubble beneath our march. Smoke rose in dark pillars, the acrid stench of burning flesh and fuel filling the air. I swallowed hard, a memory flickering unbidden. A small cottage on the outskirts of my childhood home, the scent of wood smoke and fresh bread. That life felt impossibly distant now. Target the rebels' command center, Valen ordered, his voice cold as steel. Let them see the futility of resistance. The volcano cannon hummed, capacitors charging to their deadly peak. The targeting reticule locked on a cluster of buildings nestled in the valley below. I pressed the firing rune, and the air rippled as a beam of searing energy erupted from our arm. The blast tore through the command center, reducing it to molten glass and ash. Secondary explosions rocked the valley, fires spreading like wildfire. Figures fled, but the warhound's sensors tracked every movement. For a moment, I allowed myself to feel a flicker of satisfaction. This was what I was born for, the glory of battle, the righteous fury of the Emperor's wrath. And yet, beneath that satisfaction, something stirred. A shadow of doubt, a whisper of humanity I thought long buried. Fun. Valen's voice pierced my thoughts sharply. Your mind wanders. Focus. I clenched my jaw, suppressing the rising tide of emotion. Forgive me, Commander. I am ready. But the Warhound's engines thrummed with restless energy, as if it too sensed the change within me. The machine spirit was ancient, vast beyond comprehension, and somehow alive. As the rebels' forces crumbled beneath our assault, I couldn't shake the feeling that this battle was only the beginning of something far larger and far darker than I had ever imagined. The city lay ahead like a wounded beast, its streets choked with smoke and rubble, buildings shattered and smoldering under the crimson sky. From my vantage point in the Warhound's cockpit, the devastation was both magnificent and horrifying, a testament to the raw power we wielded and the terrible cost it exacted. The distant cries of the fleeing rebels were swallowed by the roar of engines and the thunderous pounding of my Titan's footsteps. Lieutenant Larrick's voice was calm, almost clinical. Enemy forces regrouping in the central district. Infantry and light armor concentrated near the administrative complex. I adjusted my visor, the augmented reality overlay highlighting targets in blazing red. The Warhound's Gatling blaster spun up, its barrels a blur as they hungrily awaited release. Larrick's fingers danced over her controls, guiding the weapon with deadly precision. "Load incendiary rounds," Commander Valen ordered, his mechanical voice carrying an edge of steel. "We'll turn their stronghold into a pyre." I felt a flicker of hesitation. Civilians trapped in the ruins, innocents caught between our wrath and the rebels' desperation. But the thought was quickly buried beneath layers of duty and indoctrination. Mercy was a distant memory. Here, obedience was the only law. The incendiary shells tore through the air, bursting upon impact with fiery blossoms that turned stone to molten slag. Flames licked hungrily at the remains of the city, smoke billowing skyward in dark plumes. Figures ran in frantic terror, their shadows flickering like ghosts in the inferno. Despite the carnage, my eyes traced the delicate curve of Larrick's neck, the way her uniform hugged her slender frame, the faint glint of a silver locket resting against her collarbone. Small details, human details, reminding me of the life beyond this metal tomb. "Enemy armor attempting to flank southeast," Larrick reported without looking up. "Engage," I commanded, swinging the Warhound's power fist toward the incoming tanks. The blue crackling energy field ignited, arcing electricity leaping to the lead vehicle. It exploded in a shower of sparks and twisted metal, the others scattering in panic. The Warhound moved through the city like a colossus of ruin, each step crushing ancient cobblestones and centuries of history beneath its feet. The neural link fed every sensation directly into my mind, the vibrations of the engines, the heat of the weapons, the shudder of impacts against our shields. My own body convulsed within the restraint throne, muscles straining to keep pace with the Titan's motions. Sweat soaked my robes, the recycled air thick with the scent of ozone and burning fuel. Hours passed in a blur of destruction until finally, the resistance crumbled. The city center was little more than a smoking ruin, the administrative complex a shattered skeleton of steel and stone. "Compliance achieved," Valen declared, his voice carrying the weight of finality. "The Emperor's will is done." I sagged in my seat, exhaustion washing over me like a tide. The neural link disengaged slowly, returning me to my fragile human shell. My joints ached, muscles cramped, and a bitter taste of blood lingered on my tongue where I'd bitten through my lip in the heat of battle. Servitors moved about the command deck, their half-mechanical bodies clanking with awkward precision as they began post-battle rituals, applying sacred oils to the control surfaces, reciting prayers to the machine spirit, the ancient rites that kept the Warhound alive and holy. I caught Larrick's gaze as she passed, her expression unreadable beneath the grime and sweat. Was there pity there? Understanding? Or only the cold discipline we all wore like armor? A sudden crackle over the voxcaster shattered the brief silence. "All command crew to stations." Repeat. "All command crew to stations." My heart tightened. The respite was over. Duty called once more. I rose, stiff and trembling, pulling on fresh robes and crossing the familiar insignia of the 7th Armored Legion over my chest. The Warhound awaited, restless and hungry, and somewhere deep inside, an ember of doubt smoldered, a question that refused to be silenced. What if there was more to this machine, to this war, than I had ever dared to see? The corridor outside my quarters buzzed with activity. Servitors scurrying on clanking mechanical limbs, tech priests in crimson robes chanting low hymns that mingled with the metallic scent of oil and ozone. The warhound, my towering companion, loomed just beyond the massive blast doors, its cold adamantium frame gleaming faintly in the dim light. Despite its size, there was a grace to its form, a lethal elegance born of centuries of war and unyielding purpose. I tightened the strap of my gauntlet, feeling the familiar weight settle across my wrist. The Aquila pendant carved from bone, a relic from my first campaign, a fragile link to the man I once was. It lay hidden beneath my uniform, close to my heart, a secret rebellion against the unyielding doctrine that demanded I purge such sentiment. Commander Valen sat upon his command throne, a twisted monument of flesh and machine, wires snaking into his withered body like ivy strangling a dying tree. His pale eyes were closed, lips moving in silent prayer to the machine spirit even without the full neural link engaged. Somewhere beneath the layers of steel and circuitry, I sensed a flicker of the man he used to be, though it was buried deep, buried beneath centuries of servitude. New orders have arrived, Valen announced, his voice rasping like gravel. The remnants of the rebellion flee toward the northern continent. The Warhound will be transported via heavy lander to intercept them before they can regroup. A heavy lander, an immense spacecraft designed to haul titans across the stars, felt like a cage to me. The Warhound was born to walk, to dominate the battlefield through sheer presence, not be shackled like cargo. The thought made the machine spirit restless. A growl felt through the neural link. Lieutenant Larrick's fingers flew over her controls. Opposition is minimal. Scattered forces, heavy equipment destroyed. But we will scour them from existence. Prepare for transport operations, Valen commanded. Fun, oversee weapon systems lockdown. Ensure all safety protocols are observed. I nodded, swallowing the frustration that gnawed at me. The volcano cannon's power drained slowly as I initiated the shutdown sequence, the capacitors releasing their charge back into the reactor with a deep, mournful hum. The Gatling blaster's barrels ground to a halt, and the power fist's energy field flickered out, hydraulics depressurizing. The Warhound shuddered, as if protesting its captivity. I placed a hand on the cold control panel, whispering, "Soon, Great One, soon you will walk again." The panel warmed beneath my palm, or perhaps it was just my imagination, the line between reality and the machine spirit's whispers growing ever thinner. The heavy lander's vast doors groaned open, revealing a cavernous hold bathed in harsh white light. Tech priests moved swiftly, laying down blessed oils and chanting rites to ease the Titan's passage. The air thickened with incense, cloying and sweet. With painstaking care, the Warhound began its slow, ponderous march into the hold. Each step was measured, precise, like a knight entering a cathedral, wary of disturbing sacred ground. I monitored the weapon systems, ready to respond to any sign of malfunction or unauthorized activation. Lorak, overseeing locomotion, mirrored my vigilance, her fingers dancing over controls with practiced grace. Her uniform clung to her lithe figure, the stark black fabric offset by the crimson trim of her rank. A silver bracelet glinted on her wrist, a small, defiant touch of individuality in the sea of uniformity. The Titan settled into position, massive adamantium restraints locking its legs and torso in place. The machine spirit growled softly through the neural link, chafing against its bonds. "Maintain pacification rituals," Valen ordered. "Burn the incense. Recite the canticles. We must keep the spirit docile until arrival." The engines of the heavy lander roared to life, a deep vibration coursing through the command deck and into my bones. The Warhound was airborne, suspended between worlds by ancient technology. For hours of tense transit stretched ahead, the drone of the engines punctuated by the tech priest's ceaseless chanting. I settled into my station, thumbing through battle reports and technical manuals, though my mind wandered despite my efforts. Faces from a distant past floated to the surface. My father, a craftsman of servo skull components. My mother, a data scribe in the Forge Temple. My sister, once a hopeful acolyte of the tech priests. Did they still remember me? Did they know what I had become? The neural link buzzed softly, and I sensed Valen's gaze, even with his eyes closed. Your mind wanders again, Fun. Reviewing tactics for the next engagement. Commander, I replied, forcing steadiness. Remember, he said, voice low but sharp. The machine spirit sees into your heart. Deception is futile. A cold shiver ran down my spine. The rite of recommitment. A brutal ritual of psychological conditioning and memory cleansing. Loomed in the shadows of my thoughts like a guillotine. I assure you, Commander, my commitment remains absolute. He said nothing, but I knew the battle ahead would test that vow to its limits. Outside the viewport, stars wheeled silently as the heavy lander cut through the void, carrying us toward a new crucible of war, and I couldn't shake the feeling that nothing would ever be the same again. The heavy lander's engines roared as we pierced the atmosphere, the Warhound's massive form shifting slightly against its restraints with the sudden return of gravity. The cockpit trembled, a subtle reminder that, no matter the metal and circuitry, we were still fragile flesh-bound to colossal steel. Prepare for deployment, Valen's voice echoed through the neural link, steady but laced with an unmistakable edge of urgency. All crew to battle stations. Initiate pre-combat rituals. The command deck burst into motion. Servitors hurried to their posts, plugging into interfaces with mechanical precision. Tech priests in crimson robes moved like shadows, their chants rising in an eerie harmony that blended with the low hum of the Titan's systems. Lieutenant Larrick and I ran through final checks, confirming weapon readiness and system integrity. The volcano cannon hummed softly, capacitors charging once more, eager to unleash devastation. The Gatling blaster's barrels began their slow rotation, a predator awakening. Outside, the heavy lander settled onto the frozen tundra of Northumbria's northern reaches. Snow swirled in the bitter wind, swirling around the Titan's colossal feet like restless spirits. The rebels were close, scattered remnants fleeing across the wasteland, desperate to evade the Emperor's judgment. Release transport locks, Valen commanded, voice sharper now. Prepare for neural synchronization. I initiated the release, feeling resistance as the machine spirit tested its newfound freedom. The volcano cannon thrummed deeper. The Gatling blasters were growing louder, the power fist's hydraulics pressurizing with a hiss. The neural interface at the base of my skull warmed, a familiar pressure building as my senses prepared to merge once again with the Warhound's vast consciousness. I closed my eyes, centering myself with practiced discipline. Emotional turmoil was a risk I could ill afford. Commencing neural synchronization, Valen intoned solemnly. Imperator, we replied in unison. The searing pain returned, white-hot, cleansing, tearing through my mind as my consciousness expanded beyond flesh and bone. I tasted copper again, bitten lip raw and bleeding. But pain was no longer mine. It belonged to the machine. I stood tall, a colossus of adamantium and fire, my vision magnified 1,000-fold. Snowflakes danced like embers in the harsh wind, the heavy lander a speck of shadow lifting into the sky behind me. Ahead, a ragged column of enemy vehicles and troops scattered in panic, caught between the relentless advance of the Warhound and the unforgiving landscape. Forward, Valen's will surged through the link, commanding and absolute. No survivors. No merci. We moved, each step crushing frozen earth and fractured ice. The reactor pulsed beneath me, a beating heart of plasma and fury, feeding power to my weapons as the neural link thrummed with shared anticipation. Despite Valen's dominance, a whisper of doubt flickered within me, an ember of humanity amid cold steel. These were not worthy foes. They were frightened souls running for their lives. Target acquired, Larrick reported crisply through the link. Firing solution locked. Weapons free. The Gatling blaster unleashed its storm, a hurricane of shells tearing through the fleeing column. Vehicles erupted in fireballs, bodies torn asunder. Snow stained crimson beneath the relentless assault. Faces flashed in my mind, twisted in terror, disbelief, desperation. And then, a memory surfaced with brutal clarity. My sister's face, the day I left for the Collegia Titanica. Her pride, her fear, her final words echoing in my soul. "Remember who you are, Kyros," she had said. "No matter what they make you." The neural link faltered, red warning runes flashing across my vision, both human and Titan sensors registering the disruption. Valen's anger surged, a blade of will seeking to sever the weakness. "Restore neural cohesion." "Fun," his voice thundered. Now, I fought to regain control, to cage the rebellious thoughts threatening to shatter the delicate balance. But something had shifted, an invisible barrier breached. "This is not glory," I whispered across the link. "This is slaughter. I cannot continue." Valen's fury boiled over. "You defy the Emperor's will. You betray the Collegia." My body convulsed within the restraint thrown as his assault battered my mind. Blood trickled from my nose and ears, signs of the neural link strain and the heresy of defiance. "Prepare for emergency disconnection," barked a voice from below. "Moderati phone is malfunctioning." I had seconds, moments before they would tear me from the Warhound, erase my mind, repurpose my body. But I reached out, not to Valen but to the machine spirit itself. Not with command, but with truth. "I am failing you," I whispered. "Forgive me." For a heartbeat, the assault paused. Then, through the neural link, I felt something unexpected, ancient, vast, and unknowable. The Warhound listened, and the battlefield held its breath. The tension in the command deck was palpable. A charged silence broken only by the distant clanking of servitors scrambling to prepare for my removal. Their mechanical limbs moved with frantic precision, but I was no longer solely trapped in this fragile flesh. My mind stretched far beyond, entwined with the ancient consciousness of the Warhound. Without conscious thought, instinct took over. I willed the Titan to move, not in fury or destruction, but a subtle shift, a gentle straightening of its colossal frame. The massive arm, capable of crushing entire battalions, shifted just enough to throw the approaching tech priests off balance. Alarms blared, warning lights flashing across the deck as unauthorized movement rippled through the control systems. "What are you doing?" Valen's voice cracked, panic seeping through his usual iron control. "Stand down immediately." I could have crushed them all with a mere thought. The sheer force contained within the Warhound's arm was enough to obliterate every living thing inside this command chamber. The power was intoxicating and terrifying, but destruction was not my purpose. Instead, I reached deeper into the neural link, extending a simple plea not of command but of understanding. Show him what you have shown me." The neural link pulsed, expanding beyond its usual rigid protocols. Valen screamed, a raw, anguished sound that echoed through both the physical and mental realms. For the first time in decades, he was forced to experience true communion with the Warhound's machine spirit, unfiltered and overwhelming. His withered body arched, mouth agape in a silent scream as the data exchange overwhelmed his neural interfaces. The glow at his temples intensified, white-hot with the sheer force of the connection. Lieutenant Larrick stood frozen, eyes wide with horror, unsure whether to intervene or flee. Minutes stretched into eternity. Then, slowly Valen slumped back into his throne. His eyes open but different, dimmed, softened, touched by something I never thought possible. "You experience it too," I whispered, voice strained but steady. He nodded, voice barely a breath. "All this time, all these centuries, we never truly understood what we were becoming." The tech priests hesitated, their rigid discipline faltering as confusion rippled through their ranks. Sergeant Ingenia stepped forward, uncertainty creasing his augmented features. "Commander, your orders?" Valen's gaze was distant, contemplative, a man wrestling with revelations too vast for words. "The Warhound requires maintenance. We return to base immediately." "But the rebels, Commander," Ingenia pressed. "Our orders." "The situation has changed," Valen interrupted, voice firm despite the turmoil within. "Weather conditions make combat impossible. We withdraw." It was a lie. The skies were clear, visibility perfect. Yet none dared challenge the word of a commander who had glimpsed a forbidden truth. With the ponderous grace of a mountain shifting, the warhound turned away from the fleeing enemies. I felt Valen guiding its movements with uncharacteristic gentleness, like a rider recognizing the soul of his steed. As we began the long march back to the extraction point, the rebels escaped unknowingly, their lives spared by a choice few understood. The neural link powered down gradually, pain in my skull retreating to a dull throb. The copper taste of blood lingered. Sweat soaked my uniform, muscles trembling with exhaustion. What happens now? I asked quietly, certain only Valen would hear. He turned his withered head toward me, eyes holding a humanity I had never seen before. Now we face a choice far more difficult than any battle, he said. We have glimpsed a truth the Collegia Titanica has hidden, even from itself. What do we do with such knowledge? I swallowed hard, the weight of his words settling like cold stone. Report it, I whispered. Tell others what we've seen. He laughed, a dry, rasping sound devoid of humor. And be declared heretics, mind-wiped, or worse. No, Kyros fen. The Imperium does not tolerate questioners. His words were the final hammer drop. Yet within me, a strange calm blossomed, an understanding that defied fear. Valen's voice softened. We will continue to serve, but with eyes open, not blind obedience. We protect the warhound not just as a weapon, but as a living archive of those who have served it. The warhound's steps echoed steadily across the frozen wasteland, each footfall shaking the earth. Inside its iron heart, something ancient and profound had awakened. I am Kyros Fun. I serve the warhound, but I will not be consumed. Together we walk into an uncertain future. And in that moment, for the first time in a long time, I felt hope. The warhound's massive feet sank into the frozen earth with a deliberate rhythm, each step a thunderous echo that seemed to shake the very bones of Northumbria's desolate landscape. The cold wind whipped through the shattered ruins of a world caught between war and silence, carrying with it the faint, distant cries of those left behind, ghosts of a conflict that felt both eternal and unbearably immediate. Inside the cockpit, the warmth of my breath fogged the reinforced glass as I stared out into the endless white. The neural link, though still active, had settled into a new, fragile balance. Valen's presence was no longer a suffocating weight pressing down on my mind, but a cautious partner, tentative, uncertain, yet undeniably present. Lieutenant Lyric sat beside me, her usual stoic composure softened by the flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Her fingers hovered over the controls, waiting for orders that felt less like commands and more like shared decisions. The tight black of her uniform clung to her form, the silver locket at her throat catching the pale light. A small rebellion against the impersonal machinery that surrounded us. Commander, she said quietly, breaking the silence. Do you think this will change anything? What we've seen? I hesitated, the question lingering like a shadow. It has to. The warhound is more than a weapon. It remembers. It carries us all. Every victory, every loss, every sacrifice. Perhaps it's time we remembered that too. She nodded slowly, her gaze drifting to the glowing runes that flickered across the control panels. Ancient symbols infused with the power of the machine spirit. We're not just puppets anymore, she mused. Maybe we can choose our path. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. For so long, we had been cogs in a vast, unyielding machine, our wills subsumed beneath the doctrine of obedience and the cold logic of war. Now, a sliver of doubt had fractured the facade, a crack through which possibility seeped. Outside, the warhound's sensors picked up movement, scattered remnants of rebel scouts attempting to regroup. I felt the familiar surge of power rise within me, the temptation to unleash wrath and obliterate them in an instant. But I hesitated.
Hold 4, he commanded softly.
Not yet. Lyric raised an eyebrow but complied without question. The warhound's weapons powered down, the humming silence a stark contrast to the storm of destruction we had wrought hours before. A flicker of unease stirred within me. What if this mercy was weakness? What if it was the first step down a path of betrayal? Yet, beneath the doubt, a deeper conviction took root. We were more than instruments of war. We were keepers of memory, bearers of something greater than ourselves. The cockpit's hololithic display shifted, revealing a distant outcropping of jagged rocks, the extraction point where the heavy lander awaited. Our journey back would be long and uncertain. I glanced at Valen's withered form, the pale light casting deep shadows across his augmented features. "We must be ready," I said quietly, "for whatever comes next." He nodded, a faint smile touching his cracked lips. The warhound walks a new path, Kiros Fun. One not dictated by blind obedience, but by understanding. As the Titan resumed its steady march, I allowed myself a brief moment of reflection. The burdens of duty and faith still weighed heavily, but now tempered by the flicker of hope. Outside, the frozen winds howled. A harsh, unforgiving world. But within the warhound's iron heart, a new dawn stirred. And as we walked together into the unknown, I knew one thing with certainty. The war was far from over. Something deeper awaited us. Something ancient, and it was watching. The warhound's heavy steps crunched through the frozen tundra, the ground trembling beneath its colossal weight. The bitter wind bit at my faceplate, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke and distant fires. A grim reminder that even in retreat, war's scars lingered like stubborn ghosts. Inside the cockpit, the atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. I sat rigid in the restraint throne, muscles taut, mind racing to reconcile the revelations that had shattered my certainty. The neural link hummed softly, a living thread binding me to the ancient machine, its consciousness vast and unknowable, yet strangely familiar. Lieutenant Lyric broke the silence, her voice low and cautious. "Fun, have you noticed the fluctuations in the machine spirit's readings? Patterns that don't match any known protocols." I nodded slowly, fingers brushing the worn Aquila pendant beneath my uniform. Yes, it's as if the warhound is evolving, not just reacting but learning, remembering, feeling. Her eyes flickered with something akin to fear, or was it awe? Is that even possible? For a machine spirit to develop consciousness beyond its programming. I exhaled, the breath fogging the visor. I don't know, but if it is, what does that make us? Pilots? Masters? Or something else entirely? The warhound shifted beneath us, a subtle vibration coursing through the cockpit as if acknowledging the question. The machine spirit was no longer a distant force to be commanded. It was a presence to be understood, a partner in this endless dance of war. Suddenly, an alert flashed across the hololithic display, an unidentified signal emanating from a nearby ridge. The neural link translated it into a faint pulse, irregular and ancient, unlike any encrypted communication I'd encountered. "Unknown transmission," I murmured, originating less than 2 clicks from our position. Lyric's brow furrowed. Could it be a trap? An ambush? Possibly, I admitted, but I don't think so. Curiosity pried at me, a dangerous impulse in a battlefield where caution was survival. Yet the signal carried a resonance, something hauntingly familiar, like a forgotten song buried deep within the machine spirit's memory. I made a decision. Prepare to move toward the ridge. I want to investigate. The warhound pivoted with surprising grace, its massive form casting a long shadow over the snow-covered plain. As we approached, the signal grew stronger, weaving through the neural link like a thread of light in the darkness. At the ridge's crest, the source revealed itself. Not a rebel outpost or a hidden weapon, but an ancient monolith, half buried in ice and time. Its surface was etched with symbols older than the Imperium itself, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. I reached out through the neural link, touching the monolith's presence. Memories flooded my mind, visions of long-forgotten wars, lost crews, and countless souls woven into the fabric of the warhound's being. This is why the machine spirit remembers, I whispered. A relic of a past we never knew. Lyric's voice was barely audible. What does it mean? I didn't have an answer. only a growing certainty that our journey was no longer just about war or obedience. It was about discovery, about unlocking truths buried beneath layers of steel and doctrine. And as the warhound stood sentinel beside the ancient monolith, I felt the weight of history pressing down, a burden and a promise. The future beckoned, shadowed and uncertain. But one thing was clear, we were no longer alone. Something old had awakened, something watching from the depths of time, and it was calling us forward. The warhound stood silent beside the ancient monolith, its towering form casting a long shadow over the frozen ridge. The icy wind whispered through the jagged rocks, carrying with it the faint hum of forgotten voices, echoes of a time before the Imperium, before the endless wars that had shaped us all. Inside the cockpit, the neural link pulsed with a strange energy, the machine spirit entwined with the monolith's presence in a way that defied understanding. My vision blurred as waves of distant memories washed over me. Battles fought in alien landscapes, crews long dead yet somehow alive within the Titan's ancient mind. Lieutenant Larrick's voice was steady, but with an edge of disbelief. "Fun, this changes everything. If the warhound carries the memories of those who served it through centuries, what does that mean for us? For our place in this endless war?" I swallowed hard, the weight of the question pressing down like the cold steel of the cockpit around me. It means we're part of something much larger, an unbroken chain of souls bound to this machine. Not just pilots or soldiers, but custodians of history, of memory. The monolith's glow intensified, bathing the cockpit in ethereal blue light. Symbols shifted and rearranged themselves across the surface, forming patterns that resonated deep within the neural link. I reached out, fingers trembling, and touched the controls to initiate a deeper scan. Suddenly, the warhound shuddered, a vibration that coursed through every metal joint and hydraulic piston. The neural link flared, sending a shockwave of raw data flooding into my mind. Images exploded behind my eyes, visions of a forgotten war, a betrayal that had fractured the bond between man and machine, and a secret buried beneath layers of time and silence. "Warning!" Larrick's voice cut through the chaos. "Unidentified forces approaching fast. Multiple signatures converging on our position." I forced myself to focus, pushing the flood of memories aside. "Prepare for combat readiness. This may be more than a simple encounter." Outside, the horizon darkened as a formation of sleek, unknown war machines emerged from the swirling snow, silent predators moving with deadly precision. Their designs were unlike anything catalogued in Imperial records, alien yet eerily familiar. "Enemies or something else?" Larrick whispered, eyes wide. I tightened my grip on the controls, the weight of the warhound's power surging through me. "We face a new threat, one tied to the past we've only just begun to understand." The monolith's glow pulsed in response, as if warning or beckoning. The warhound's weapon systems came alive, capacitors charging, Gatling blasters spinning in anticipation. As the unknown forces closed in, the neural link thrummed with anticipation and fear. The battle ahead was no longer just about obedience or survival. It was a test of understanding, of trust between man and machine. And somewhere deep within the warhound's ancient consciousness, a secret waited to be revealed. A secret that could change the fate of us all. The frozen wasteland became a stage for an encounter that would echo through history. And I, Kiros Fon, stood ready to face the unknown. Because this war was far from over. And the real battle was just beginning. The icy wind howled as the alien war machines advanced, their silhouettes cutting through the swirling snow like dark omens. Their sleek, unfamiliar designs glinted with an unnatural sheen, weapons humming with an eerie energy that set every sensor on edge. The warhound stirred beneath me. A slumbering giant awakened, its systems blazing to life in response to the coming storm. Inside the cockpit, my heart hammered against the cold metal restraint. The neural link pulsed violently, the ancient machine spirit entwined with my very thoughts, urging readiness. Valen's voice echoed faintly, a ghostly presence now tempered by the revelations we had shared. "Prepare for engagement," I commanded, voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside. Lieutenant Larrick's eyes sparkled with grim determination.
Targeting solution locked.
Weapons primed. The volcano cannon charged, a deep thrumming vibration coursing through the warhound's arm. The Gatling blaster spun faster, eager to taste the blood of battle once more. The power fist flexed, energy crackling along its surface like lightning trapped in steel. The alien machines struck first, a sudden burst of energy lancing toward us. The warhound's void shields flared to life, absorbing the assault with a low, resonant hum. The battlefield exploded into chaos, snow turning to steam as weapons clashed, metal screamed against metal. I moved with practiced precision, directing the Titan's wrath against the encroaching threat. The volcano cannon unleashed a searing beam, slicing through the nearest enemy and reducing it to molten slag. The Gatling blaster tore into swarms of smaller foes, a furious storm of destruction. Yet amidst the fury, a strange clarity emerged. The neural link thrummed with ancient memories, guiding my actions not just with tactics but with echoes of those who had come before. The warhound was more than a weapon. It was a living archive, a vessel of countless souls entwined in a singular purpose. Suddenly, a piercing signal cut through the chaos, the monolith's glow flaring in response. The alien machines faltered, their movements erratic as if caught in an invisible web. Through the neural link, I sensed a resonance, an ancient code awakening within the warhound and the monolith alike. Valen's voice whispered in my mind, softer now, almost reverent. The past and future converge, Heroes Fun. We are more than soldiers, we are guardians. With renewed purpose, I ordered a final, decisive strike. The warhound's power fist surged forward, energy crackling as it slammed into the largest alien war machine. The impact sent shockwaves rippling across the battlefield, crushing metal, shattering armor, and toppling foes like trees. As silence fell over the snowy wasteland, the warhound stood victorious but changed. The ancient bond between man and machine had deepened, revealing truths that would reshape the future. I removed my helmet, breath shallow and heart pounding, eyes meeting Larrick's across the cockpit. This is only the beginning. She nodded, a faint smile breaking through the grime and exhaustion. And whatever comes next, we face it together. Outside, the monolith's glow softened, a beacon in the frozen night, a symbol of hope, mystery, and the unending journey of the warhound and those who serve it. I am Kiro's Fun. I serve the warhound, and together, we will walk into whatever darkness awaits. Because in the endless war, some bonds never break. And some machines carry more than just steel, they carry souls. The future is uncertain. But for the first time in a long time, so is the hope.